Call the Common Council meeting of June 14th to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Strelchuk?
Here.
Alderman Bushy?
Here.
Alderman Meyer?
Here.
Alderman Hancher?
Here.
Alderman Garrow?
Here.
Alderman Parrish?
Here.
Alderman Schneider? Here. Mayor Nerben?
Here. First up, we have specified miscellaneous new business, the appointment to District 8 aldermanic seat through April 4th, 2023, or the reconsideration of the aldermanic process. So we've got 11 people signed up to speak. We'll get to that in a second. The city attorney is going to run us through the multitude of different scenarios that could happen tonight, just so everyone in attendance understands. I'll say a few words, and then we'll take the 11 people from the public in the order they were submitted, and you'll each get 5 minutes to speak your mind. Take it away, Mr. Sajak.
All right, so we'll try to keep this brief because obviously all of the council members have the benefit of having read the memo, but just wanted to kind of highlight the process both in case there were questions and also just so that members of the public understood as well. So there's a couple options that you have this evening. The first option would be to do an either or kind of advisory vote. That vote would look just like the vote that we took at committee of the whole. You would basically have each alderman indicate which of the two candidates they would prefer. The mayor in this case, because we are now at the council, does not vote. Really this approach would be really useful to potentially identify who we would appoint as part of the motion, the second motion that's described up there. And what I mean by that is that, if no votes have changed, you're going to end up effectively at the same position where you have 4 votes in favor of one candidate, 3 votes in favor of a different candidate, that might give you an idea of which candidate then potentially to make the motion to appoint to as part of the formal action that would take place. The second motion, which is a motion that if we are going to make an appointment this evening would be required, even if you do the advisory vote in the first step, would be a formal motion to appoint one or the other candidate. This is an ayes or noes vote, as is a motion to appoint. By our code, the District 8 vacancy would be a no vote on that particular motion. As I note on the slide, unless the votes, any of the votes change, again, I would anticipate one of 2 options will result. Either it will be a failed motion where we have 3 in favor and 5 opposed, including the one deemed no vote, or you end up with a tie vote where you have 4 ayes and 4 noes, including the one deemed vote. In the event of a tie, the mayor may, but is not required to break that tie. I just note that the mayor's vote only breaks the vote on the motion. So it's either the motion passes or it doesn't. If the motion is to appoint candidate A it is a tie vote, him voting no does not mean candidate B wins and is appointed. It just means that the motion to appoint A fails. So hopefully everybody kind of understands that. The last process, as I indicated in the memo, our code is kind of unclear. It does seem to contemplate that this process will always be done by appointment. That is inconsistent with the statute. The statute certainly gives you options in terms of how you appoint. One of those options would be that you can just hold the seat vacant until you hold an election to fill that vacancy, which could include a special election. Because of that, I would recommend that we would do a motion to suspend the rules this evening to consider doing that. And then, as we're going to talk about in the next slide, we have some time, and so the likely result will be that we'll bring forward a code amendment that puts us more in line with what the state statute provides, including using a special election to fill the vacancy. And then I would just note that by statute, if we go this route, that when we hold that special election, that candidate fills the position through the end of the term of the vacant position. So unlike what we've talked about previously, where they would run again if they're appointed in April of 2023, if there is a vote and an election, that's for the end of the term, which is April of 2024. So they would only have one election really either way, depending on which way you went. So just next slide. So with that in mind, we tried to sketch out what a potential election might look like and when we might be able to hold it. You note the X's in red on the calendar month that's marked November. Those are dates that we can't hold the election by statute, because the general election for all of the state races and the federal races is on November 8th. And the statute says we can't hold anything between August and that date. Additionally, because that's an election night, it also would typically be our council night. That means our council shifts to the next day, where you see the order election being indicated there. By statute, we have to order the election formally within a certain time period, so there would be future action on ordering that election if we wanted to do it. Once we looked then at the statute, we kind of contemplated a couple things. Number one, we didn't want to have an instance where we had two ballots that were out at any one time. So in other words, we wouldn't want to start the process such that we had sent out absentee ballots for the special election while there were still ballots being sent and dealt with for the general election. So that meant that absentee ballot time frame would have to start after that general election. Certainly one of the concerns is a mistake could be made. I don't think with one election in one district that's as much of a concern, but certainly you will have folks that get confused and will complain because of the confusion. I thought I already voted. What do you mean I need to vote twice? Those types of concerns that we would have. So we tried to avoid that. The other thing we tried to do is to avoid holding an election at a point that would conflict with a holiday. And so as you see, when you then look at the December and early January timeframe, that effectively eliminates 3 weeks for us where we can't really hold an election. You have Hanukkah that starts the first week, then you roll into Christmas the following week, and then you have the first of the year, and then there's also I remembered what it was, and I just forgot. But there is another Jewish holiday on the 3rd as well, and I apologize to those that may know better than I what it is. And so what that means is that when we do that and we fill in all of the blanks in terms of how long we have to hold elections and that kind of concern, that meant the most likely date to hold the election would be January 10th. Which would, if we then work backwards, means that the primary would be held on December 13th. And then that would mean that nomination papers would be due on November 15th. Now, you notice on the November slide, that means that they have about 6 days to circulate nomination papers if we do that order at a regular meeting. And certainly one of my recommendations would be, if you wanted to do that, that we probably would hold a special meeting for the purposes of ordering that. We could hold that meeting anywhere from December 25th up until that date that's the election order is there. So we would likely want to do that. On the other hand, it's 6 days to get 20 signatures. So, it certainly wouldn't be an impossible task either to do that. So that would be the one option. The other option that you would have, although it is maybe less than ideal, is that you could hold the election on January 24th. That would make the primary date December 27th, which is not obviously a holiday. It is in between the two kind of major, at least secular holidays, Christian and secular holiday that are there. I know a lot of people tend to travel that week because kids are off of school as well. So that may not be an ideal time to hold a primary as well. So that's why we got to the point where we think that January 10th date is probably the most likely to do that. We can't go any later. Statute, because we then kick into the spring process, and so you can't hold anything after February 1st unless it corresponds with the process for the spring election, which would mean that we could do an election where you have the primary in February, and then the general election corresponding with the regular election in April. You could do that. Obviously, you're putting off the vacancy for basically a year at that point. So again, not in an ideal circumstance. So that's kind of how we settled on this being the most likely approach to do that. So that's what I have. And if there's any questions, happy to answer them.
Alderman Garrell.
Before I became alderman, Dan Abendroth ran for mayor and for District 1 seat at the same time against Rob Strelchek. And Dan Abendroth won both. So I think it was fairly quickly. I think it was fairly quickly that Rob Strelchek squared off against, I think it was Rob Holtz, and then Rob won. You know, that I don't think that didn't take very long, did it? Wasn't that a month or so?
September election.
It was a September election.
Yeah, so two things kind of happened there. Number one, the statutes changed in terms of when we could do it. The federal rules changed with respect to when we had to hold a primary for that November race to account for folks that were overseas and getting ballots back from folks in the military, that kind of stuff. That resulted in our primary date shifting into that August timeframe. And then the statute changed to say that you couldn't hold an election between those time periods. And so that complicated things. And then also, the second thing just escaped me, but there was another smaller issue that was there too. But just that we acted immediately in that case to set an election as opposed to initially saying we were going to do an appointment. And so that was the other difference. We were able to get it done in a time where we could hold it in September to do that.
So if we made it, we couldn't. There's no way in the world that we could make an amendment to anything or move it up faster than.
No, but at this point, the statute says that you can't hold a special election between the August primary and the November general election date. So that effectively ruins 3 months out of the year for us for a potential election to do that. It likewise tells us that we can't do it in this, that same period between the spring elections. So you couldn't do it between February and April as well.
And I think everyone recalls we lost our window to align it with the fall election by 1 day.
Correct.
After our previous meeting. So there's been some rule changes at the state and federal level since Rob's experience. Alderwoman Schneider.
This may be a question more for the city clerk, but what is the cost? We haven't really had special elections in my tenure, so what is the cost of the city to run a special election for an aldermanic district?
In my calculation, it would be about $6,500. And the reason why that may seem high to some people is because it is only a local election, we bear 100% of the cost. Whereas in other elections, if the county has a race or the school board, they participate in the cost.
And that's $6,500 per vote. So if we have a primary, it's $6,500, and then $6,500 for the actual election as well.
Gotcha.
Alderman Boucher.
As you mentioned, a certain holiday, I got some looks. So I did my homework and did a quick lookup. And January 3rd is just considered a fast day. It's considered a typical work day for everybody who observes it. So it's not a fun holiday, but that one would be a legitimate day actually for people to be out and about and active.
So we wouldn't get yelled at if we held something on that day, is what you're telling me?
That's to the best of my knowledge, yes.
All right. So that would potentially open up a couple different days as well, potentially, if you wanted to do something on January 3rd. Most likely the primary election would be held on that day. Would open some things up to do that, but
I'm going to say a couple words real quick. There's one more question here from Alderman Meyer.
Just a quick question. I understand we can make a motion at any time, but the Our specific code, does it list that as a alternative to our other means of election for an alderman to win a vacancy?
So the code doesn't really say that vacancy shall be filled by appointment. What it does is it just spells out the process of how the appointment process would work.
So one would assume that if they're spelling out the process,
It's implied,
it's
correct.
implied that that is the way it's supposed to be done.
Correct. It's not 100% clear, but that is the implication of the code. And so we would have to suspend that rule and to really change the code if we wanted to do an appointment. Or do an election, rather.
Well, I
Sorry.
think our code is also out of compliance with state statutes.
Well, state statutes identify the methods by which you could fill the appointments. Arguably, we have just selected one of those methods. So I don't know that we're out of compliance, but we certainly have other alternatives available to us by statute.
I just want to make sure that if we use that process, that's...
Yeah, and that's why, as I highlight on the slide, we would bring forward a code change as early as next month to identify that you could fill it with the election process as well.
Was that a hand raise, Alderman Strelchek?
Yeah, I just didn't want to. Couple things. Number one, I'll walk through kind of where we've been as a council because we've got a lot of new individuals in the room, and I'm sure people are watching at home. We trend towards the appointment process mainly because it's a reasonably equitable and faster way to gain representation for the people in District 8. My goal in this process is to have somebody in that seat and have somebody that those residents of District 8 can call, express their concerns, and work through their issues, which is the purpose of an alderman being here. Special elections have happened in the past to address a disagreement on council, or if there just was a flavor for maybe we just feel it would be best to go to the public. So if there is a vote tonight to go to a vote, I wouldn't look at that as a representation that we don't want somebody in that seat. Maybe that decision might change tonight based on some of the things that we hear and we feel, and we want that to go to a vote for the people to decide who they want in that seat, and not 7 members plus a mayor up here voting, which is a point of contention for at least, a few of us older people up here. My appetite for a special election is I don't ever feel that we should have to spend additional taxpayer money to have a special election. Generally, that's speaking. Tonight that has changed. I'm willing to invest or recommend to invest city funds in a special election if it would be deemed appropriate to get somebody in that seat to represent those people quicker and more effectively. So just to share, a few points of where I'm thinking, as well as just share a little bit of insight on the process here. Mayor Abendroth and I did run against each other. We became very close friends. I want to assure that everybody in the room with varying opinions that if you take a deep breath, you embrace people that have a differing opinion than you reach out to them, and you work with the choice of the person that's there. Not only can you find consensus, but you can find some deep and lasting friendships. I consider former Mayor Abendroth and his wife long-term friends, and we did have a fairly contentious election going into it. Every time we get together and mix public, we joke around about it. So I just wanted to assure the people in the room that regardless of which way tonight goes, you've got a strong community and you've got strong people. And if you take that spirit of serving your community and serving your city, once that person is elected in office, the community is a stronger place. They're moving forward. So thank you.
All right, one real quick word from me, and then we'll get to the public comment section. So I convinced myself I was going to run for this position. I had a remarkably small list of goals. One was it was going to be about service. This is not an ego or a power trip for me. I am humbled every day by the trust and responsibility the public puts in me. 2, I'm committed to looking forward, not backwards. What's in the past is done. We need to charter path forward. 3, leave Mequon just a little bit better than I found it. We're on a remarkable trajectory, and I think it's within our control to keep headed in that great direction and keep this a great place to live. And the last was to keep local politics less political. So it's no secret that in the last meeting I voted for Nancy. She's been a friend for a long time. We were den leaders in Cub Scouts together. She's also helped with a couple of my campaigns. It's no secret. That's all public record. That's not why I voted for her. She's showed up to the last 8 meetings, maybe 9 now. She attended our day-long strategic planning process. She's up to speed and ready to hit the ground running. I've also had a nice conversation with Mr. Gephardt this weekend, got to know him a little better. I came out of that conversation very comfortable with his ability to fit into this group and do the job. He's a good guy. So I've come to learn that there's some belief that my role in this process is making it a little more political, so I'm going to take myself out of it. It's going to be up to the council to come to a recommendation. I'm not going to break a tie either way. I came a couple days ago, I felt totally different about that. I'd have voted for either one to break a tie and fill the seat. But if it's going to be politicized on either side, I'm not going to play. So with that, we'll get the public comment, and then we'll see where this process goes. First up, we have Nancy Urbani from 10802 North Pebble Lane. Wishes to speak.
Good evening. It's a little bit of a scorcher out there, isn't it? I'm glad for air conditioning. I had to run some errands in Wauwatosa this morning, and my car thermometer said 94, 97 before noon. And I got home and pulled in my driveway, and my car thermometer said 84 degrees. And I thought, oh my gosh, District 8 is seriously the best place to live. We have a giant air conditioner right next to us, and it was just enough cooler that I could mow my lawn in perfect comfort. It was great, although I think it kept increasing as the day went on. But I really want to focus on that uniqueness of District 8, what makes it lovely to live in, and to that end, I have a couple more thoughts about it. We talked about in the interview last week about the biggest challenge facing District 8. I have a couple other ideas. I know a grant application was submitted earlier this month for repaving Mequon Road, Lakeshore Drive, and Zedler Roads after the I-43 construction is complete. I think it would be nice to have something for bicyclists and pedestrians on those roads, just a little bit wider, like the paved shoulder, kind of how Donges Bay Road is in my district right now. I think this was suggested quite some time ago, and residents were not in favor of the paved shoulder. So I am very interested in talking to residents about the situation, getting an updated response from them about their views for these roads. I don't know if you know, a lot of our subdivisions in District 8 are connected by paths. Lots of people walk their dogs, ride their bikes, and many of them include Vermont Park on their route, so they have to cross Lakeshore Drive. So, it's heavily traveled, needs to be repaved, but I don't know what should happen for those other travelers. Another topic I'm interested in is the railroad crossing at Mequon Road. First, a quiet zone was implemented at Donges Bay Road, and it was still on the long-term wish list for Mequon Road. So I still want to, follow that and see what we could do for that. Second, it would be nice to extend that sidewalk from under the I-43 overpass up over the railroad to San Marino Drive so that we can connect that sidewalk to all of District 8. Part of that is going to be done with the I-43 construction. It's going to get partway, but then only to the railroad easement. So I know working with railroads is somewhat of a challenge, but I'd like to hear other people's opinions on this. Maybe it's just me. Maybe nobody else wants that sidewalk extended. Maybe it's not necessary. I'm not sure. Finally, I want to keep close tabs on what's happening. We heard earlier in the strategic plan about the quality of life project about enhancing Lake Michigan access. I want to keep tabs on what's going on with that. As I've been told, there was access to the lake many, many years ago, probably unauthorized paths. But local residents were complaining. I heard this in the Parks Board. Local residents were complaining about parties on the beach at night and calling the police officers about it. So, hopefully that won't be an issue, but I just want to stay in touch with people and see, and hopefully access to the beach, if the stairway is finished, I hope it becomes a benefit to our community. As far as the rest of the city, and as I mentioned last week, I am excited that you're embarking on the strategic plan process. I've been through strategic planning development while I was with Willamette Dental. I was the one responsible for pulling the data and calculating what SMART goals could be, helping work through KPIs and seeing what numbers made sense to people and what were good indicators for people to follow. I helped set up the dashboards and the reports for stakeholders to monitor those goals and objectives. So I realize this is not a position that you want to be in, and yet it is up to you to come to consensus and choose someone for District 8. We need someone to keep the city running until the district can decide in a regular election. Someone to help decide how to maintain our 165 miles of sewer and our 213 miles of public roads. However, if it results in a vacancy, it's my personal opinion that it would be in the best interest of the city of the whole not to have a special election. Again, that's my personal opinion. I think November would have been fine, but statutes changed. We missed a deadline. April is the next regular election, and then the residents will be able to decide who should fill the remaining year in the term. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Ms. Urbani. Next, we have Julie Ludgen, 2709 West Hickory Lane.
Hi, thank you. My name is Julie Litgen. I'm a Mequon resident for about 16 years. I sent a letter in support of Mr. Gebhardt. I watched the meeting last week, and frankly, I was kind of dumbfounded as to why it wasn't settled last week. Mr. Gebhardt is clearly more qualified. He will listen to what his constituents want, even if he doesn't agree, and he'll make a decision based on their will. Mr. Gebhardt has an incredible background with experience of managing people. He has an agreeable personality, and the will of the people is a priority. He stood up to fill a need. He wasn't groomed for the position. Ms. Urbani said in the last meeting, after listening to her constituents, that it wouldn't change her mind. Her social media shows a history of being in favor of raising taxes and reparations and a clear political stance. This is not what Mequon wants. As a real estate agent, raising taxes in Mequon combined with the declining schools is not an attractant. Mr. Gebhardt is a clear choice. I hope you listen to your constituents and the information provided to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Heather Nill from 6350 West Spur Road, number 222.
Can everybody just pull the mic up to them a little bit?
This is good. Good evening. I am representing someone who could not attend tonight who lives in District 8. This person has sent an email and just wanted to affirm that you have received it. They are vehemently stating that we do not want Nancy Urbani to represent us in our district. They consider Bill Gebhardt as more qualified to represent the district. Considering that we are in this unfortunate predicament, we feel very strongly that the residents of this district should be the ones to decide who should be our representative. We have lived in this district since 1998 and got to know our then Alderman Pam Adams very well. With Pam's unfortunate passing in 2017, we weren't given a choice as to who would replace her. Andrew Nurburn was picked by this committee as the replacement, even though at that time he already had his own district, District 7, which he conveniently resigned from at that time, citing buying a house in 8. Regardless, he was chosen. This committee then once again, instead of giving the people in District 7 their choice, went on to assign Kathleen Schneider for his District 7 position. We are now in an almost identical predicament. It seems once again there may not be a desire to want the citizens of District 8 to have a voice or a choice. They would like, and this person is preferring a special election be held for the 8th district. I'm paraphrasing because I do appreciate the fact that you are abstaining from your vote this evening, but this email does go into wanting the vote to be withdrawn from Andrew Durbin. Also, in addition, how can you possibly ignore all the information and evidence clearly demonstrating just how political Nancy Urbani is? To preserve the integrity of our community and strengthen relationships, representatives serving the 8th District have in the past remained apolitical, namely Pam Adams. Future aldermen should likewise remain apolitical and unbiased. Nancy Urbani is the co-founder of the Coalition to Support NTSD. Her co-partner doesn't even live in Mequon. Her extracurriculars and resume building activities suggest she is a political activist with an agenda. And you will see from the packet that is true and verified. Has anyone done any of the due diligence and looked into that background? The last 6 months and 12 months in particular has been completely divisive in our community. Regardless of how she acts now to win your vote, please study her past. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Amber Schrader, 10879 North Wildcat Way.
Good evening. I was actually also going to speak requesting that Mr. Nurbun possibly abstain from the vote tonight, so I appreciate you doing that on your own. After connecting a lot of dots and realizing that Mr. Urbani did in fact work very hard to not only get you elected for alderman, but to also help get you elected for mayor, it did seem like it was going to be very hard for you to be impartial given that and your current friendship with the Urbani family. A lot of residents felt like that seemed like maybe this was a thank you gift to her to get her, slid right into this seat. So as you have noticed, there's a lot of controversy going on with this position. Probably the one thing Nancy and we haven't had a lot of conversations together, her and I, but I would actually agree with her that I think this seat, because of the conflict going on within the community and the issues going on here politically, that the residents of District 8 should be able to vote somebody in and not have this be an appointment. So I would be in favor of also saving taxpayer funds and waiting until the spring election and putting this on the ballot then. I don't see a huge advantage. I think you guys are a very creative and smart group of people. I'm confident you could each take a certain section of District 8, or somebody could take all of District 8 in the meantime and maybe cover that or help out with that area. So I would agree with Nancy that I would say that should, wait and go on the spring ballot. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the record, I have not stopped representing District 8. I created the vacancy. I still take the emails. Next up is Rich Kaczynski from 12967 North Conley Drive. Is Rich here? Oh, there he is. Okay.
First of all, I'd like to say that I've read all your bios on the website, and I would like to thank you all for serving the communities that you represent. Whether you were elected or appointed, you took an oath that you would support not only the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin, but also of the United States. Section 4 of Article 4 of the U.S. Constitution states, "The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government," which we learned from our civics lessons is a form of government where the citizens elect individuals to represent them at various levels of governing bodies. With a population of approximately 3,000 constituents across each of our 8 districts, the resulting selection of one man or woman to represent them as an alderman or an alderwoman empowers that person to speak for them and vote on their behalf, provided that they had the opportunity to share the issues with them, allowing them to express their concerns, provide feedback, or just voice their agreement. Aristotle, who I know you all remember from your history lessons, has been quoted as saying The securing of one individual's good is cause for rejoicing, but to secure the good of a nation or of a city-state is nobler and more divine. It is here that I revert to last week's Tuesday's Common Council meeting where Alderman Jeffrey Hanscher asked the following question. If the majority of your neighborhood was opposed to something, but you were in favor, what would you do? Bill Gebhardt's reply was, I think I welcome the difference of opinion. He went on to speak about the onion thing, which I didn't, include in this statement that I'm giving. But he went on to say that the piece that I have found that can be the missing link very often is just the communication. I would want to make sure that they understand all data points. The advantage that this group has is that you have more data available to you, and very often you're involved with discussions with your peers that not every member of the community has the opportunity to be part of or is privy to. The first thing I would do is make sure as we have those discussions that they understand what the arguments are and what the issue is and why the group has come to maybe a different opinion or why I have a different opinion on that, and to talk it through. If that does not bridge the divide, then I believe I've got a fiduciary responsibility, since I'm representing that district, to go ahead and make sure that I'm supporting the majority view of the district. And I would make sure I uphold that and follow through, even if that's against what I might personally choose to do. The same question was asked of Nancy. If the majority of your neighborhood was opposed to something, but you were in favor, what would you do? This is Nancy's reply, verbatim. In my experience, is the time residents hear about something, it has often been discussed at the city level for quite some time, in committee, or back and forth, or been circulating for a while. So I would focus on first communicating as many facts as I know about the situation as possible, and talking about pros and cons to different approaches. Maybe sometimes there's facts they don't know about, but really people want to feel to be heard, and they need to be heard. We need to consider all of those facets in their perspectives. So it's important to hear what they have to say, but also along with that is the obligation to consider what's good for the city and how the impact of one decision fits in with the decisions overall of other things that are going on that they might not know about. So I would want to listen to them carefully, consider their perspective, and make sure I understand it thoroughly. But I'm not totally sure it would change my overall view. In closing, I ask that you support a candidate who will truly represent the constituents of their district. Someone who will not dismiss the, quote, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Someone like Bill Gebhardt. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Peter Glazer, 10935 North Wingate Trace.
Thank you for the excuse me. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Again, my name is Peter Glazer. I live in District 8, and I'm a third-generation resident of Mequon. My wife and I have raised our 5 children in the Wingate Trace neighborhood for the past 14 years. Several members of my extended family call Mequon home. My ties to Mequon run deep, and my family has always chosen to be part of this community because of its high standards. I attended last week's meeting and listened very carefully to both candidates' interviews. In my opinion, as someone who is often involved in a hiring process for large organizations, Bill Gebhardt gave a superior interview and has a stronger resume. I left last week's meeting feeling extremely concerned and confused. I would like an explanation from those members of the Common Council who voted in favor of Ms. Urbani on how they were able to look past Alderman Garrell's comments on her divisive and defamatory attacks directed at him and other residents of the community. I would also like to know whether or not you have done your due diligence on Mr. Bonney's social media activity. If you plan on voting for Mr. Bonney tonight, I think you owe the community an explanation as to how you were able to look past this terrible behavior. A history of divisiveness and defamation directed at a member of this common council and residents of this community should automatically disqualify Mr. Bonney from the consideration. I don't believe any of you have ever exhibited this type of behavior. Please keep in mind that you are voting to uphold the integrity of this council tonight. Please do not lower the bar and reward Mr. Bonney's bad behavior, especially when you have such an extraordinary alternative candidate in Bill Gebhardt. Unlike Mr. Bonney, Bill Gebhardt has zero controversy surrounding his candidacy. In fact, I haven't heard a negative word about him. As a voter in District 8 who has taken the time to be involved in this process, I am asking each and every member of the Common Council who voted in favor of Mr. Bonney to provide the community with an explanation as how you are able to excuse this behavior. Why are you choosing her over Bill Gebhardt, given these issues? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jill Cromie from 13033 North Phillip Drive.
Sorry, printer didn't work tonight. So I wanted
I
wanted to start by thanking you for the opportunity to address you all this evening. My name is Jill Cromie, and I really thought long and hard about speaking tonight as a resident of Mequon, and I wasn't really quite sure how I wanted to approach it. And so I just started looking at what are the habits and the qualifications that make someone an effective and a good and strong alderperson. The first habit was that you're anchored in the community. I've been a resident here for the past 13 years, and I believe Mr. Banney has been here as long as I have, as we met in Mom's Club. Mr. Gebhardt was raised in Mequon and is choosing to raise his children here as well. So I believe that they both fit that bill. Habit number 2 is that you understand the council and the city's legal and financial responsibilities. Number 3 was that you respect the city manager's leadership as well as other leaders and staff that operate in the city. And I think that both candidates' backgrounds and resumes show that they are capable and qualified to handle these tasks. But here's where the similarity ends. Mr. Banney was a founding member of the coalition, and this group originally focused on our school board, but it seems to have now been involving itself in other functions in the schools and clearly now in seeking offices within local government. In early March of this year, this group formally became a political action committee. Habit number 4 was the ability to focus on moving the city forward rather than a specific agenda. Many residents, including myself, believe that we don't need political action committees involved in our local elections or have leaders sit in our public offices. Why? For one reason, in name, they are political, and therefore they do have a specific political agenda that they support and want to advance. The Coalition Political Action Committee group has documented ties to numerous groups within our community, and these groups are definitely not nonpartisan. Secondly, campaign fundraising rules are different for political action committees. This puts any individual resident not tied to a political action committee at a financial disadvantage. How do we incentivize good and honest citizens who want to represent the diverse voices within our city and our businesses and our schools if they have to run self-funded against campaigns that are funded by political action committees with clear agendas? Habit number 5 is that you maintain good communication with residents and the local press. Number 6, that you refrain from publicly criticizing an individual, an official, or an employee. And habit number 7 is you invite feedback because you strive to be a good listener. The Coalition PAC openly states that those who do not agree with their agenda and their philosophy do not belong here. Their social media pages openly speak out against those who are not in alignment with their beliefs. I came to speak tonight because I want community leaders who come to the table with only the best interest at heart. Mequon deserves to have leaders that have the ability to listen to the diverse views of all of its citizens and not just the ones who belong to their political action committee or subscribe to their philosophy. I heard tonight, and I want to thank our mayor for speaking out and about about speaking and keeping these positions nonpartisan. And for that reason, I want to encourage you to consider Bill Gebhardt for alderman. He is the only candidate that is not tied to a specific group or a political action committee agenda, and his resume and professional background clearly lay out that he is more than qualified for the position. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Next, we have Bridget King from 12960 Northwest Shoreland Drive.
Hi, my name is Bridget King. Before I get into this, I just want to say I helped fight the recall. And the coalition was not a political action committee at the time. It was a group of parents who were so concerned about somebody undermining the elected officials that were voted by the citizens of this city. And as soon as that election, that special election was over, Nancy Urbani left the coalition. She is not a part of it. She is non-political, and anything that she does put on social media, I'm sure there are some Democrats and some Republicans up here, and you have views on that, but that doesn't come into practice for Mequon. That's at the national level, and I think that's what she discusses. So with that, I come before you today in support of Nancy Urbani for District 8 Alderwoman. Although I am not a District 8 resident, this special interview process leaves the decision to all of our elected officials, and I believe all residents should be considered. All residents' wishes should be considered. Nancy Urbani is the most qualified and the most invested in this community in terms of her volunteer services over the years and her consistent participation at council meetings. So rather than considering a candidate who is a fast learner, it would be best to have one who is already experienced in the workings of local government. I would also like to see a more fair representation of our population and would value having another woman on the council. This would be a great asset to all women of this community. It was suggested last week during the interview process that a special election, as you also spoke about tonight, during the interview process that a special election was a more desirable tool to decide the fate of the empty aldermanic seat. But I believe the residents of Mequon prefer this temporary legal process to expedite representation, where all alderpeople can speak on behalf of their constituents, rather than the added cost and manpower of a special election. The last special election in this city was November 2021, and the voters came out in droves and overwhelmingly fought against the divisive school board recall effort. Those who are affiliated with this group bring partisanship and politics to the committees and boards that they try to get on, and they do not belong on the council. We had 5 Mequon mayors of different political persuasions who were always mindful of staying out of school business during their years of service come forward as a united front to express their deep concern with the abuse of the special election process, costing taxpayers dearly. I need to mention the attack on Ms. Urbani last week. The information shared was patently false and taken out of context, and everyone seems to be reiterating that. I have all the documents of her communication with the reporter, the newspaper article where her quote was taken out of context about one of the individuals, her communication with that individual in trying to rectify it, and the public apology she put up on social media for the mistake of a local reporter. She went above and beyond to rectify that situation. Those of us who know Nancy Urbani know she is a consensus builder and she works tirelessly for the good of the community. I hope you consider all these facts as you once again address the immediate need to fill this empty aldermanic seat so District 8 residents have expeditious representation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Deb Evendroth from the same address, 12960 Northwest Shoreland Drive.
Good evening, council members. Back when I was mayor, I appointed Nancy Urbani to the park board. She was open-minded, highly engaged, and always considered what was best for the community. I can honestly say that I have never observed a candidate as well qualified for this role as Nancy. So I hope you consider supporting her for this open alderwoman seat. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Scarlett Johnson, 10935 North Wingate Trace.
Hi, everyone. I'm speaking for myself and for a few members of the 8th District, of which I am. I live in the 8th District, to speak about, unfortunately, I have to speak about Nancy Urbani. And I am no opponent of partisanship. I believe reasonable people can put aside their partisanship and work for the common good. However, Nancy and the recently formed Coalition Political Action Committee, which supports her and which she helped found, has made claims for over a year that any hint of partisanship on social media or any activism that can at all be deemed partisan automatically disqualifies you for any nonpartisan office. This is a high bar that they set, and it is now torn asunder the very moment one of their own runs for local office. Nancy Urbani has a long history of activism, of which there is still proof, even though most of her social media has been scrubbed. Many of the items in your packet were sent to various people, and we've compiled them. We keep talking about this, I'm going to quickly go through some of these very controversial statements that aren't in alignment with Mequon, and they are definitely not in alignment with the district. Quote, Mequon has a history of zero tax increases. This is not sustainable. Please tell your alderman if you support tax increases. Sharing a link. North Carolina City votes to approve reparation for Black residents, of which she says, I am heartened to see good things happen. While this is not exactly reparations, at least they're starting the process of addressing long-term systemic racism and the wealth gap. Go into the article. This is about a $2.1 million tax levy from a city land purchase to be used by qualifying residents towards home ownership assistance in the suburban community. The article continues, 2.1 million is not nearly enough. And, quote, divesting from the city police department would be a better form of reparations. This is something that she thought was a good idea. Again, about reparations, Chicago suburbs, in which Evanston, Illinois, Chicago suburb used a 3% tax on the collected sale of recreational marijuana and pledged to use this as reparations for historical racism. The city council would authorize qualifying residents $25,000 in taxes to use towards home ownership and mortgage assistance. A repost of Sean King, BLM activist. He's a Young Turks commentator whose podcast titles include Let's Talk About Defunding the Police, How We Defund the Police Through Budget Cuts, 10 Ways to Defund the Police, The Solution to Police Brutality, Defund Them. A repost of Occupy Democrats, a left-wing media outlet that they say provides counterbalance to the Republican Tea Party. I'm sorry that this keeps going off. A joint post with Break the Silence in the Burbs. Erica Turner of Bridge the Divide and Brittany Vulich of Break the Silence in the Burbs. in which Nancy says, "Tonight I feel like I met local celebrities. So glad you two are doing the work you do." Who is Brittany Vulich? Brittany Vulich posts, "The suburbs are going to make or break this election and determine whether we flip districts blue." She was a field organizer for Emily Segrist and several other groups running for political office in the Democrat Party. Nancy reposting, "Break the silence in the burbs" again. Get a ride to the polls. Stand up for yourself. Nancy Urbani reposting, "Break the silence in the burbs," criticizing parents who speak up at board meetings. Again, Break the Silence in the Burbs is run and founded by Brittany Vulich, standing in front of a Biden-Harris, saying, calling Trump the most dangerous president in history. Let's work hard to defeat him. Break the Silence in the Burbs, posting the Socialist Party for Liberation, the People's Platform. Brittany Vulich saying to Nancy, "Thank you for being one of the many dedicated individuals, organizations, and elected officials across Wisconsin who speak truth to power." Brittany Vulich also, a disturbing trend of negative posts towards our police officers and the men in blue. So many, you don't even have all of them. Bridge the Divide, Erica Turner, who was a local celebrity for Nancy. Conversation that they posted several times. An interesting conversation on what it means to defund or reallocate funds within the Milwaukee Police Department. Bridge the Divide interviews Vaughn Mays.
Excuse me, Scarlett, we're about 30 seconds over the
Okay.
5-minute time.
Criticizing Andrew Hopkins for school board. There's one last thing that's really important. As we said, the coalition co-founder is Nancy Urbani. We also have Becky Woody and Nicole Angrisano, whose Twitter handle is, pulled this yesterday, "Prized Mom Who Low-Key Runs the District." I would prefer that the coalition not run the entire district, and I think you should make the right choice.
Thank you. Last, we have Kimberly Steinbrenner from 119 West Vintage Drive.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this evening. First, I would like to say that Pam Adams reached out to me during my campaign for county supervisor. She knew I would make an excellent alderman for District 8. I am a resident of District 8. She asked that I would kindly wait to run until she could no longer serve and not run against her. When she finally passed, I made a bid, as these two individuals are, to become your District 8 alderman. At the time, Alderman Nurbin was the successful individual. When the regular election came around, and I was running against then Alderman Nurbin, now Mayor Nurbin, my husband and I were very excited to run a positive and energetic campaign. I learned very quickly that positive was not what was in store for us. Every retailer that was willing to let me put out a sign was quickly bullied by the Nancy Urbani and her group and to remove it using fear of retaliation. My husband still drove me around every night after work so I could knock on every door in my district and introduce myself. Then every night I would come home to hateful, nasty, and dishonest Facebook posts from Nancy Urbani and her group. Fast forward, I learned she was putting in a bid to be my alderman. I was concerned that someone like that could not fairly represent all of our district, only her few and their interests. Interestingly, I went back to my Facebook page when I was running for alderman to look at some of her comments, and they're gone. Every one of them is gone but one. Now, if you have Facebook, you can scroll over, hover over where it says comment, and you can see the list of names of all the people who commented. Hers are just vanished. It's like they never existed. I don't know why that is. What is she afraid people are going to see? The only post that is remaining is the one on the day I announced I had successfully knocked on every door. Her comment was, "Oh, I guess I wasn't home." Facebook comments aren't the only thing she's hiding. She no longer appears on Nextdoor Gazebo. We need honesty, integrity, and transparency, and not deception and bullying in our local government. Ms. Urbani obviously has a political agenda that she is now trying to hide from the public. Second, my husband and I own 2 small businesses. When hiring people, we look to the qualifications and business experience of the candidates. While being involved as a community organizer is commendable, it does not nearly compare with the real world experience. A vote for any other than Mr. Gebhardt indicates that members of this board care about politics rather than the best interests of Mequon. Mr. Nervin, thank you very much for abstaining. I respect that from you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment on that item. So let's take it back to the council. I don't know which motions you're going to make or what you're going to do, but let's try to keep our comments respectful to the candidates. One of these 2 could be your future colleague. With that, who wants to go first? Alderman Gill.
I just want to talk a little bit about if it goes to a special election. The city attorney, I said to him the other day, how many complaints do you think I get a month? He goes, he thought it was 30 or 40 people calling. I said, I get maybe 1 a month, maybe not even that many. I get maybe 3 a year, whereby a resident actually calls me up as alderman and asks me to do something, which of course I get on right away. And what I've told them again and again and again is, and probably only one to follow up on. Usually what I get is one neighbor doesn't like the other neighbor, and they want me to complain to the city about it. And I say to them, send me an email to the city website, and I'll forward it off to Will Jones, and he'll take care of it. Well, can I remain anonymous? No, you can't. Well, then I don't want to do it. What they're really trying to do is get me in the middle of a neighbor dispute. Leaving District 8 until a special election. I know that district a bit because I'm lakefront. I've lived on the lake for 22 years now. If it came down to it, I mean, you're not going to have a lot of people who have neighbors who have problems. I get a number of calls still from District 8 residents because I have a bluff that actually you can walk down to. I have probably the only lake access bluff besides Concordia in the city of Mequon. And I spent $500,000 getting it and putting it together and working with the DNR for over 8 years to have it that way. So neighbors call me up from District 8 and they say, who do I use? How do you do this? What is the process? And I help them out with it when they do call. Because I have a lot of experience in it. But if it would come to shove, I think that if you don't want it to go, District 8 to go without representation, I'd be willing to take those calls in District 8, or if another alderman wanted to take them with me, or if the mayor wanted, since it was his district, to take them with me, we can cover until such a time that that we have that special election. Of course, the thing that we would be not having is someone voting for District 8 or on city matters. But this common council's got 7-8 qualified people on it, and we could easily get by and get it done and handle it. It's not something that we can't handle. And very seldom do you have tie votes on the common council. So if it does come to a special election, and I don't think we're going to have, a primary. I mean, we only had 2 applicants for the position. I don't think anybody else wants to step up and get involved in the election when we have 2 applicants for the position. So I don't think it's going to be a real hard matter to handle that. And I could take the the calls from residents if they needed it in the meantime, if it gets to that, and if we can't make a decision tonight. And if another alderman says, well, I'd like to help out, or I'd like to do it, that's fine, they can do it too. But like I said, I don't get many calls. Will knows that, very few do I ever refer over to the city. And all of them I learned over the years, that's how you handle it. Make them put it in writing, so you have a paper trail. You have accountability and responsibility. And it's really not a job that stresses me out at all with the residents. And I don't think the other aldermen have that either. So that's all I really wanted to say.
Thank you. Anyone else care to share some comments or make a motion? Alderman Strelchak.
I agree with Alderman Gero. I also agree with the statements that were made in the public with the fact that appointing somebody gives you somebody that's expeditious to be in the position, somebody that you can reach out to immediately that is your alderman or alderperson. Everything in my soul tells me I want somebody in that seat ASAP. But the additional things that I'm hearing and the additional considerations, this has started out a little divisive, and my job to me as an alderman is to be a collaborator, to bring the community together. I took a call from District 8 last week from a friend of mine. He didn't know who his alderman was, and I said, well, it's actually the mayor. If you want to talk to the mayor, reach out and talk to him right now, or you can talk to me because I've known you for 20 years. I texted my mom, I forgot what year we moved to Mequon, I think it was 1972. So I've got as much experience in this community as you do. I'm going to make just kind of an overall broad-reaching statement. I was in the community when this council was very divisive. I'm going to caution people during the election to put aside your political parties and vote for people within the community that just want to be in the office and they want to serve. I don't give a damn if they are Republican or Democrat. If they love the city of Mequon, want to make it a better place to live, work, and raise your family, and they're going to listen to the residents and be collaborative, that is somebody I want to serve in office with. That's somebody I want to support, and it's somebody that I hope the general public will support. I don't feel comfortable tonight picking a winner or a loser. I'm going to abstain from my vote tonight, regardless of what that motion is, unless it is to go to a general election or a special election. I'm willing to vote in favor of a special election for the extra cost in this instance, because the emails that I've seen have started to get divisive. I listened to the resident that wants to vote for their alderman or alderperson. You want that person in office that you trust. You want your vote to go in. You want your vote to be counted. So as an alderman tonight, I'm going to be in favor of something different than I've ever been in favor of before. And I'm going to be in favor of supporting anybody that wants to reach out to myself or anybody on the council. In the meantime, I will help you like you're my own. We've had a lot of redistricting. District 8, you're not my own yet, but I'm happy to help you out. And I'm going to recommend that we go to election. So that's where I sit on this at this point. And I just wanted to make that statement up front as we get into additional discussion to see if that changes anything.
Is there Alderman Parrish?
I have several comments tonight, but first I'm going to start off with Alderman Strelchak, who I respect you quite a bit, and I'm not following your logic there. I'm sorry. I think it's I think you have no reason to abstain. And I think that your residents put you in office to make these hard decisions. So with that, I'm going to switch to my comments. I would like to provide some clarity on my thoughts as we vote to fill the District 8 aldermanic position this evening. First, I believe we need to fill this position tonight absolutely and avoid a special election. It's our duty to avoid a special election and all the resources involved with that. Ultimately, if we get it wrong tonight, the voters will voice their opinion in the April 2023 election. District 8 residents need representation in the 2023 budgeting process. They need customer service. They need support regarding neighborhood issues and basic city questions. I am always happy to help. As I have been doing, I've been the one getting the calls. So, and probably you too, because we're closest. I'm always happy to help. But each district's alderman needs to be focused on its own day-to-day issues, and every taxpayer needs representation now. Our city boards and committees need the representation, and currently the Economic Development Board and others have one less representative. That is not ideal either, and so I'll probably have to go to those meetings. Now, to my second point, and I want this to be very, very, very clear. Issues relating to the Mequon-Thiensville School District must never come into these Common Council chambers. Looking around the room at the last meeting, and even worse tonight, it was hard not to feel both sides of the recall had come into our chambers, as if somehow that were a consideration for an alderperson. Voters expect Common Council to be nonpartisan, as failure to do so evades trust in our local government. This was the crux of my news graphic editorial prior to the April 23 elections. During that time and to this day, education has somehow become politicized, and it's truly alarming for everyone on both sides. As were my fellow aldermen at the time, we were all asked to make public opinions about the school recall one way or the other. The community was hurting, and they were looking for leadership. Yet, most of us had the strength to resist weighing in or commenting, which is good practice. Let's always stay out of school district matters and hope that the coalition, or the district, and the recallers both stand down and completely disband as soon as possible. Local people from opposing groups should continue to personally volunteer for the school district. That is the best and only sustainable way to make change. Again, stand down, disband, reconcile, unite as a community. Now for my third point, it's clear that Ms. Urbani is passionate about education, and so she is being mistaken as partisan, even though I have never witnessed an iota of it in my 10 years of knowing her. Nextdoor Gazebo and Facebook have created this toxic environment of hurt feelings between the most mature of adults. I personally believe leaders should not get into the middle of the fray on social media, or you will clearly be misunderstood as Ms. Urbani is experiencing. Furthermore, to be clear, my vote for the other candidate was an effort to avoid this diatribe that continues to divide our community. Many people have stood up against this behavior and in favor of Nancy. For what I believe it is in the best interest of the city and its taxpayers. I will change my vote and vote in favor of Nancy as District 8 alderperson. The winner tonight will have to earn the trust of the voters in April 2023. I emphasize that I believe both candidates are equally capable of the job, and we would be fortunate to have either one. The voters will ultimately get it right, but let's make a decision tonight and then get back to work. We have strategic planning in our 2023 budget that needs our focus and attention.
Any further comment or a motion? Alderman Boucher.
It's going to be tough to follow up a powerful set of comments. Something I definitely agree with as far as Facebook and other online media is concerned is I don't believe that that's a place for a lot of divisiveness going out there. And as a result, because of that, it's at least 3 or 4 years ago, I shut down a Facebook page that I had. Not that it was very exciting. but I didn't want to follow and listen to all of the attacks and everything that goes on that undermines actually the whole purpose of what the social media was set up in the initial goals. So no Facebook, no Twitter, still have Strava, but that's a different group. And a takeaway that I heard here tonight, and that is that there's only positive things that have been said regarding Mr. Gephardt. And it's for that reason that I would stand by my position from last week.
Thank you. Anyone else? We need a motion to get off this one way or the other. Alderman Giro.
Going to try this. I think that, I think we can handle it going forward for a special election. I think that the voters should decide. It is a republic whereby the residents pick who they want to represent their district. $6,500 isn't a whole lot of money to spend to give the residents, 3,000 residents over in District 8, the choice of who they want as their alderman. Like $2 a piece. So, and like I said, Alderman Strelczyk could cover, I could cover, anybody could cover. You don't get a lot of it. We can make it through until a special election. You know, I don't want to, we can do it. We've done it before. We did it with Abendroth and Strelczyk before, and with Strelczyk and Holtz. So I'm going to do I'm going to make a motion at this time that we do have a special election.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
How about we make a motion for an election in general and debate the merits of the election, and then I'll second it. Whether it be a special election or an April election, I'd like to hear the city attorney's focused.
As a point of order, it's a special election either way. It's just whether the timing aligns with the regular election or not would be the discussion.
So we could debate that motion and then debate the timing thereof.
I'll second that because I want to discuss it.
Is that what I heard? I just want to make sure that's correct. Okay, that's so we can further refine that. The date as a separate question after that motion, if it's easier to take up that way. So there's a motion and a second for a special election, not committing to a date. Any further discussion? Alderman Meyer.
I think it's our job as elected officials to at least try to make a decision on it. I'm a little dismayed with people saying they're going to recluse themselves for it. I can understand the mayors inside of that a little bit. I don't even know if an alderman can recluse themselves for the heck of reclusing themselves. There has to be a reason behind it. It has to be for reasons of possible financial gain. It has to be for family members. Some of those things has to be just not the fact that, hey, I'm just not going to vote. It's like going someplace and voting present. I mean, we all were elected to make decisions, and I respect Alderman Strelczyk a lot. But I think it's our duty to at least try to put a vote through tonight. If it doesn't go through on that, but at this point, I'm not going to vote for a special election at this time. I prefer to try to get the vote through and get it all handled. And people need representation. And if it has to go to a special election, fine. I may change it at the end or reconsider the vote on it. But at the present time, I think we haven't even tried the other options yet. So I won't vote for the special election.
So if someone wanted to withdraw their motion, we could take up a vote and see where the chips fall to Alderman Meyer's suggestion. And we can always make that motion after that fails, or presuming it fails. Maybe it'll pass. Who knows?
I'm willing to withdraw to go on a vote. Yeah, absolutely.
Alderman Boucher.
Trying to put the thoughts together here is while I do state that I firmly, my vote is unchanged. The other thing, the comment that I did have is that having individuals vote, I think one of the speakers here did mention that it has been the case that whoever we put in that position has then the upper hand advantage that's been shown repeatedly. And with that, I would still, while I'm in support of one side, I would end up seconding the motion to allow individuals to vote in the near future.
Is anyone else confused?
I'm confused.
Yes, I'm saying if Alderman Strauchak removes his second, then I would put mine in.
Okay.
We had a motion and a second. Are you withdrawing your?
Did you withdraw your second?
I was willing to take a vote, you know.
Okay.
Can I explain myself a little bit here? 'Cause
Absolutely, this is the time to do it.
Alderman Parrish and I agree on 90% of the stuff, and the 10% of the stuff that we voted on and it's done, we chat about after, and we discuss our points, and I have the utmost of respect for him, as well as all my fellow council members. I'm willing to vote. It's my preference in this situation, and I always felt that if it was a very divisive decision, which it seems like it is at this point, that the people within District 8 or the people within whichever district it may be, their voice was most important. I agree with Alderman Parrish. I agree with anybody that makes the statement that I'm here to make hard decisions, and I've voted either yay or nay for every single one up to this point. But there comes a time, as a person that went through the process, we ended up in a stalemate, ended up running a special election, in my opinion, should be in September like mine was. So they screwed that up for us, which is disappointing. We went through two elections. I went through two elections, one with a mayor that I have the utmost respect for, that I had the fortune to serve with for the majority of his time as mayor. And I think the people expressed their voice. It was a close vote. And what happens after that is that the people have decided who they want, and there's a certain amount of peace that comes with selecting the person that's going to represent you in that office. There's a certain amount of calm after the storm. And whether it's the person that you voted for or whether it's the person that you didn't, it's somebody that was elected by the general populace within the community. I don't know that 7 of us can make a better decision than the 3,000 people in District 8. Simple as that. I like the idea of sending this vote to the people, to have the people vote for who they want. I will 110% mirror what Alderman Parrish stated. Keep the partisan politics the hell out of Mequon. Please stop. It's old. It's gotten old. I'm done with it. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. I don't care if you've stated something on social media that you're a Democrat or Republican. That's your voice as a citizen, and you have freedom of speech. I support you with that. It's part of the Constitution. Come together as a community with this election, run a positive election. I challenge you. I challenge the people who see a negative election to vote the other way. I'd like to see it personally, because I don't want to see anyone running a negative campaign to win anything in the city of Mequon. Stay positive. Stay focused on the facts. Stay focused on what you can do for the community, and be a positive influence that's the person that you want to be when you're sitting in this seat, and show some respect for the position. I will vote one way or the other tonight. I still fully support throwing it to the people. So whether this goes to a vote for a special election or it goes to a vote for a candidate, I will vote. But my heart is with the people of District 8, and I would like to see them, in this particular instance, have their voice be heard, be counted, and have the alderperson or alderman of their choosing.
So it sounds like we're going to take a stab at a vote.
You have a motion
So
and
I'm-
a second.
Motion
We
is
have to figure out what to do with that.
Well, if someone withdraws their motion,
I have, but he's added his. He'd like to second that motion.
is
We can always take the vote.
Alderman from District 5 willing to withdraw his motion? If you attempt to take a vote, we can always come back to your motion later.
I'm not gonna withdraw it, just see if we can do it, see if.
Okay. We have a,
See if the common council wants.
we have a motion and a second
Choice.
for a special election with no willingness to withdraw to take up a vote, so we're going to have a vote on that. Please call the roll.
So, well, can I clarify? So this is to have a special election?
Correct.
Okay.
The motion,
At
the
first.
second still on the table. No one's going to entertain the alternate path, so we'll go this way.
Alderman Strelchak,
Aye.
Alderman Bushy,
Aye.
Alderman Meyer,
No.
Alderman Hancher,
No.
Alderman Garrow,
Aye.
Alderman Parrish,
No.
Alderman Schneider.
No.
3 ayes and 4 no, with the deemed no. That's 5-3, so
5-3. So it's a no.
Now, if the, like, if the
Sure, point of order.
vote-
Yeah.
if the votes don't tally up correctly for a winner, after a few tries, somebody has to reconsider their vote. Who voted.
Correct, yeah. The correct procedure would be if we can't vote someone in, then someone on the winning side would have to reconsider
And
the
we
motion,
we can retake that up.
and we can take it up again. Alderwoman
So
Schneider.
I'm just going to give it a shot. I'm going to make a motion to appoint Nancy Urbani to the Common Council for District 8.
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and a second. I think at this point, debate's over. We go right to a vote, unless someone wants to say something.
Can I just,
Sure.
sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. City Attorney.
So I just want to make clear to Alderman Mayor's point. Code provision, and it scrolled on me, sorry, I gotta get back to it, says, as it relates to abstention, any person eligible to vote shall, when within the room in which the vote is to be taken, at the time a question is put his or her vote, unless it is his or her good faith belief that special circumstances compel him or her to abstain. The alderman or mayor shall announce his or her intention to abstain as soon as they determine that they intend to do so, and shall thereafter refrain from participating in discussion on the question, and shall remove himself or herself from the chambers for the duration of the discussion and the vote on the matter. Upon notifying of the intent to abstain, the official may, but is not compelled to, make a brief oral statement as to their reasons. Obviously, part of the discussion that took place was, well, if we go one way, I'm going to abstain, but if it's a different thing, I'm not. So it arguably was appropriate for said alderperson to continue in discussions as it related to whether we have a special election or not.
But I do believe he withdrew his.
Well, and that's where I'm ultimately going, which is, I think before a vote is taken, because if you abstain, our code also says that it is a deemed no vote, that before a vote is taken, that you need to declare your intention as to how you intend to vote, because it may change how somebody else votes in light of that.
Alderman Parrish challenged me to make the hard decision, so I'm going with it.
All right. There's a motion and a second. Let's call the roll again.
Alderman Bushy,
No.
Alderman Meyer,
No.
Alderman Hancher,
What do we vote? I'm sorry. What?
To a point.
The motion and a second to appoint Nancy.
Okay, yes.
Alderman Garrow,
No.
Alderman Parrish,
Yes.
Alderman Schneider.
Yes.
So we have 3 ayes for appointment.
You don't have Strelchik on.
No.
Alderman Strelchak.
I changed my mind, remember?
So we have 3 ayes and we have 5 noes.
So that motion fails.
So may I make a motion to go to a special election? Or because I was on the wrong side of that vote, do I need somebody that was on the right side of the vote to make
Oh,
that?
this is a brand new motion, I believe. It doesn't preclude you from making a future motion.
I make a motion for a special election.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further conversation? Hearing none.
So you're changing your vote? Because didn't we vote on that already?
We need to
It's
retally
an-
the
it's a-
votes from the last.
He said no.
So
He voted yes.
It was a no, so that's
I voted no.
my empty seat's a no. So that's 5-3.
right. So the motion failed. It is the same motion, and so I think you would need to properly reconsider that motion. So there would be a motion to reconsider.
not-
The
I make a motion to
reconsider would have to
reconsider.
be by somebody in
I make a motion to reconsider the motion of holding a special election.
There's a motion. Is there a,
What was that?
I voted,
No, yeah.
she voted no.
She voted no,
second?
and that was
You can, you just can't make it.
just the motion maker has to make it. A second can be,
A motion and a second, yes.
so that would be appropriate.
There's a motion and a second to have it go to a special election. Still not committing to a date, I presume. To reconsider.
Right.
So we're going to vote to reconsider, then we're going to actually determine if we're.
We'll
going
get
to do
there.
it. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to jump the gun. God, one step ahead all the time, except when I can't do it. So this motion is to reconsider the prior vote to have a special election. Let's keep calling the roll.
Alderman Meyer,
No.
Alderman Hancher,
Yes.
Alderman Garrow,
Yes.
Alderman Parrish,
Yes.
Alderman Schneider,
yes.
Alderman Stralchuk,
Yes.
Alderman Bushy.
No.
5 ayes and 3 no.
So that passes.
That passes. So just to recall or refresh everybody's memory, that means that the motion that was on the table is now on the
Back
table.
on the table.
So it is a motion to hold a special election is now on the table. You may do with that motion as you please.
Is it back on the table or is it just back for reconsideration requiring another motion in a second?
No.
No, the motion is
Motion is
as
back
it's
on the
been
table.
made,
Okay. It's back.
is ready to vote. So you could take a vote just based on that, or you can amend, you can table, you can do whatever you otherwise would do to a motion that's presently stated.
To hopefully keep this process linear, I would recommend taking the question up first and then arguing about a date second.
Great.
So let's call the question on the special election again. This is to support a special election. We'll worry about the date second.
Alderman Hancher,
Yes.
Alderman Garrow,
Yes.
Alderman Parrish,
Yes.
Alderman Schneider,
Yes.
Alderman Stralchuk,
Yes.
Alderman Bushy,
Yes.
Alderman Meyer.
No.
Because I can. Okay, so that motion passes, so we're doing a special election. Maybe we should remind us what our dates are again. It's been a couple hours.
Sure, and we can put the slide back up if we really want to look at that. Basically, the dates that were on the slide, you could look at the most ideal circumstance being a special election on the 10th. Recall that process probably requires us to hold a special meeting to formally order that election in order to give them additional time to circulate nomination papers. You could likewise hold the election on the 24th. The problem there is that it does require the primary on the 27th, which is kind of that in-between week that everybody wonders about. Additional options that have been discussed this evening that I quick did the math on. If we use the January 3rd date, that apparently would be okay. You could hold the actual election on that date. The primary then would be December 6th, and November 8th would be the date that nominations would be due. That likewise, just as was the case with the January 10th date, would require us to hold a special meeting to formally order that. Likewise, if you just keyed it to the spring election cycle, just to remind everybody, that would mean the election would be on April 4th this year, or next year, I should say. The primary there is the third Tuesday in February, which would be February 21st. Nomination papers would be due on January 17th. And we could do that order at our regular December meeting, which would give the candidates 5 weeks to circulate nomination papers. So those would be the most realistic and available options. Anything other than that, we're either messing with holidays or you're overlapping elections that take place.
Alderman Parrish.
Thank you, Mayor. What's the normal turnout like for a special election relating to alderman appointments? Haven't been around for that.
And I don't know, Madam Clerk. Yeah, I don't think you were here for the last one either.
I'm concerned.
I know.
I'm concerned about like the mobile, just turnout for a December, early January election, and
It was a 30% turnout for mine, I think at least.
That seems
About
reasonable.
1,200 people, I think, showed up to vote.
I don't know that that's the District 8 voters speaking either.
Yeah.
Well, we tend to have a few more snowbirds than District 1.
Can absence.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know if they will for.
If you go around and stuff boxes, there's a lot of mailboxes that acquire stuff in the wintertime. There's no one home. So I think we got to decide if we're going to do a special election early, if we're going to put on the regular election cycle 4 months later. If we're going to do it earlier, we got the 3rd or the 10th. Did I get that right?
Correct. January 3rd would be the again, keeping in mind that we don't want to overlap with the general election in November. January 3rd would be the earliest that we could hold the election. The 10th would be an option, as would the 24th. 24th, recall, meaning that the primary is in that week between Christmas and New Year's, or the just regular cycle, which would be the April 4th. Those would be the available dates that you would have.
And just to clarify, in this special election, the person who wins will get until 2024 then.
Correct. They serve out the end of the term at that point.
I just want everybody to know.
So someone needs to make a motion, but my opinion is we should do it as soon as we can, but the 3rd might be pushing it a little too close to what is traditionally a time people are out of town.
So are you suggesting January 10th?
I'm suggesting the 10th, but
Mr. Mayor,
someone feel free to make a motion.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, Attorney Sadak pointed out earlier that he would be bringing back an ordinance and suspending the rules, asking the council to suspend the rules next month to authorize us to hold a special election because it's currently not stipulated in the city code. My question is more for the city attorney. Do we need to decide on dates tonight? Or can we take a little time on the staff end to work through dates and options and present those to the council next month as part of the suspension of the rules and consideration of the ordinance?
Yeah, I mean, certainly you wouldn't have to at this point. You've made the determination that you're going to hold an election. As I've indicated, in any event, because of the time frame where you have to order the election within a certain period of time, at a minimum, we will be coming back. Even if you decided a date tonight, we would be coming back to formally bless that date, if you will, as part of the process that the statute defines for us. So there certainly is no kind of hard and fast rule that says you have to set a date tonight. We could lay out all the options more clearly for you next month. As I say, we will presumably bring back a code amendment to just clarify that this is an option, although I do note that notwithstanding the fact that our code says it clearly contemplates an appointment. The code hasn't changed since 2006, so the election in 2013 would have been done in violation of that code as well. So I think that I'd have to look at how we did that at the time, but I think there's
Had a couple legit elections since then.
you have had a couple of legit elections since then, and I think we're past the statute of limitations on anything you may have done beyond that. But
I think the decision's more between like fall or the winter or spring. We don't care about the date so much.
Is a straw vote appropriate here? Because if people are thinking April, that's a whole different thing, and we've got more time. And if they're thinking earlier, then I think we could maybe have it be okay to kick to the next meeting and provide some clarity around dates. So I saw a nod yes that a straw vote is probably okay here. So who's thinking April and who's thinking January-ish, just by show of hands? So let's go April 1st. Who's thinking April? Sure, if it's going to be pertinent to this, go ahead.
It is going to be pertinent. I mean, when I want to think about something, I sleep on it. I wait a couple days. I mean, I think I think we make this decision at our next common council meeting because it's not going to change the date anyway. Instead of jumping into it.
That's equally acceptable.
Okay.
Is everyone comfortable with taking up the date next go around?
If we
Show
don't,
of hands, everyone who thinks it's okay to wait to pick a date.
well, if we don't miss a deadline, yes.
I don't think we can now because we already missed the deadline.
There's no deadlines that we would be
I'm
at risk
comfortable
of.
with that.
Think about it.
Okay, everyone who's okay letting the date be picked later. Looks like a pretty solid majority. Okay, we'll pick the date later. That, I think, concludes this item. Does anyone need a break, or do you want to keep plowing through?
We don't have that much left.
2-minute break.
We don't have that much left.
Let's
I
just
agree.
plow through it.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with us. Wish you best the most of luck, assuming you apply or submit papers. Next, we have public hearing for ordinance 2022-1621. Ordinance amending the planned unit development for the property located at 12831 North Fort Washington Road in conjunction with expanding the hours of operation from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So it's recommended by the Planning Commission on April 25th. First reading at council was at May 10th. Need a motion to go into public hearing.
Motion to go into public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of going into public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
We are now in public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Seeing and hearing none.
Move to close public hearing.
Close.
Second.
Second. Motion and a second to close. All those in favor of closing public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
We are out of public hearing, and we will immediately take up consideration of that same ordinance. Is there a motion to approve or any comments?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve ordinance 2022-1621. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. That ordinance passes. Next, we have personal appearances and public comment. Citizens wishing to address the council on any matter not on the agenda may do so at this time. If you desire to be heard on agenda items, you may be heard when that item is considered on the agenda. Please speak into the mic at the podium. Time limit is 5 minutes. Is there anyone wishing to speak during open mic session? Seeing none, we'll move on. Public officials reports. I'm going to withhold saying anything else. Is there anything from the city administrator?
No, Mayor, not tonight. Thank you.
Right. Next, we have the consent agenda. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 15, well, take that back. 13 sets of meeting minutes, zoning enforcement report, and the CMAR, the comprehensive financial, annual comprehensive financial report on the consent agenda, as well as 2 resolutions. One is 3957 for the bike path easement Others, 3958, approving the CMAR, which we discussed as the sewer commission earlier. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those items are approved. We have some ordinance first readings. Ordinance 2022-1624, an ordinance amending city zoning map, chapter 58, from R3C2 to R3C2 with transfer of development rights and a PUD overlay to allow for a 17-lot, single-family residential cluster development in the property located on the north side of Donjas Bay Road, approximately 800 feet west of Wauwatosa Road, known as Borough Estates. This was recommended by the Planning Commission on May 23rd. It is a first reading. Next, we have ordinances. Ordinance 2022-1618, ordinance creating section 10-26 of the Mequon Municipal Code related to residential swimming pools.
Mayor?
Recommended, sure.
I'm making a motion to reconsider my vote.
On this item, so we have a motion to reconsider. Is there a second?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second.
And before I make a quick thing, I've done this with the hope of not listening to some new information or that and not spending an hour on this again. So since we've gone over up on it, so.
Alderman Parrish?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with reconsidering it. I would like to reconsider it and then immediately table it to send it back to committee, as the current ordinance would be a no vote for me. But in the spirit of trying to get to yes on something that my colleagues have spent quite a bit of time on here, I'd like to give them another kick at the can. There's certainly a few things that would make me more comfortable with it. So I hope we don't vote on it tonight, because that will just end this for good. So.
Well, it'll end it for 3 months and then it can come back.
You can make the vote to reconsider and then make the motion right away to table.
Yeah.
Alderman Giro?
Yeah, there's been, I think it'll come back to the committee. I mean, I talked to the city attorney, and there's going to be some substantial changes to it. So if it goes back to the committee, I think that, we can try and work through it to make it acceptable.
What?
Alderman Boucher?
I would just like to add that there is a document at the table that I did research talking to somebody yesterday, so please, if that goes back to committee, include the discussion that I found out from the PHTA.
So I've heard a desire to reconsider. I've also heard some indication that on multiple fronts, we think it needs to go back to committee. So we have to get through the reconsideration first. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on reconsidering? Alderman Strelchak?
Just point of order question, I'll keep it simple. Do we need to reconsider and then take a vote to send it back to committee, or can city staff just, with our direction, send it to committee and just rework this?
We actually do not need a motion, and we do not need to vote on reconsidering to send it back to committee, because if it's going to go through substantial changes,
if it's going through,
it would come back as its own new thing anyway, and it would be a new piece of legislation, substantially different from the old one, thus not requiring reconsideration.
Yeah, if there's substantial changes, I don't need.
Can we get an idea of what the substantial change is? I mean, what's considered
You're
substantial?
making modifications to just about anything, the age of the people supervising it, more technical standards, things of that nature. I think we contemplated this might happen, and we talked through some scenarios this morning. You actually don't need to reconsider it at all to send it back to committee.
Yeah, there's not a real clear definition as to what substantial change means, but just in light of what kind of the suggestions that we've received, I've received some from Alderman Parrish, received some from Alderman Bushy, that the revised version, I think, would be different than what we're talking about in a material way.
Then.
So.
Yeah.
Unless you want to spend an hour or two here
No,
knocking
thank you.
it all out, so.
I don't want to.
Well, okay. Before we do that, we do have one member of the public that's signed to speak up, and I don't want her to lose her right to speak. So we will entertain the one person making public comment, and then we can choose to do what we want to do with the motion on the table to reconsider. That's only fair. So Amber Schrader from 10879 North Wildcat Way.
Okay, I'm only going to take a minute since it's obviously going to be tabled and there'll be further discussion. Did want to say thank you for the reconsideration. I agree with all of you. There's still a lot of work to be done in this ordinance. The current ordinance as it stands, I don't think is adequate, and the ordinance as we had written it, I don't think is quite there yet either. So willing to work with you all again and give it another shot. Did want to point out that recently on the MLS, I was sent 2 different homes in Mequon that are for sale right now that were built within the last 10 years, and neither of them has a fence around their pool. So I think there's a lot of work to be done in the city. Neither of these 2 homes have a fence. Neither of these 2 homes have an automatic pool cover. Their pools are just wide open. So I don't know if that's an inspection issue. I don't know if that's some kind of special permit that you can get, which I'm unaware of, but do want to bring that to everybody's attention. I'm happy to send you the addresses later in an email as these were just sent to me. But I think there's a lot of work to be done, and I'd be happy to show up at the public safety meeting and keep working on this with you all. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you. So now, noting that we don't actually need to take any action to send it back to committee, do we want to take any action? Or just send it back to committee?
Well, you have a motion, so I think you have to either.
They can
have
withdraw
a
it.
motion, withdraw it.
They can withdraw it, and we can vote on it. If no one wants to withdraw, we'll call the question.
Did I second it? Withdraw.
I'm not following that. If we're, I mean, right now that is dead, so we have to bring out a brand new one back to public welfare then. That's what you're saying.
I think that's correct. That's everyone has contemplated it's going to go through substantial revision, and we won't get it right here tonight because it's.
No, we're not going to do it tonight.
Yeah. Okay, we'll take the vote. We have a motion in a second.
To reconsider.
We can vote to reconsider, and then we'll presumably vote to do something to table it right after that.
Right.
So we don't need a roll call for this, do we? All those in favor of reconsideration, please say aye.
Aye.
All not in favor, please say nay or no. The ayes have it. Is there another motion?
Motion to table.
Second.
Motion in the second to table. That's not debatable. It's always
Just for point of clarification, that is a motion to table and to refer back to committee.
correct.
Is that correct?
That is,
Agreed.
that is correct.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what I thought I heard, but.
Thank you for the clarification. Now we won't debate it anymore. All those in favor of tabling, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's tabled. All right, next ordinance, 2022-1623, ordinance amending various provisions of the Mequon Municipal Code in connection with the establishment of the Southern Ozaki Fire and Emergency Medical Services Department, recommended by the Public Safety Committee on May 10th. First reading at Common Council on that same night.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just, I guess, for the purposes of clarification, the council did note that there were changes that were made between last month and this month. They were identified in the packet. We can go through those if anybody needs to do that, but otherwise the current version would be the one that is adopted.
They were minor in nature, just clarifying things. The original author of the document found subsequent clarifications that needed to be made.
Correct.
So those are before you tonight. All in favor, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That ordinance passes as well. Resolutions. We have Resolution 3959, the resolution authorizing execution of the professional services agreement for the completion of a class and comp study for non-represented positions with GovHR USA, LLC, in the amount not to exceed of $22,200. This was recommended earlier this evening by Finance and Personnel. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. I'm happy to announce I see representation from the library here. This will actually include assessing library staff free of charge from the new outfit. So we're happy we could accommodate you for a very reasonable price. All those in favor, please say aye.
It's
Do we have-
money.
Oh, it's right, it's money. Okay. Okay, call the roll since it's money.
Alderman Garrow.
Aye.
Alderman Parrish.
Aye.
Alderman Schneider.
Aye.
Alderman Stralchuk.
Aye.
Alderman Bushy.
Aye.
Alderman Meyer.
Aye.
And Alderman Hancher.
Aye.
The ayes have it. That resolution is approved. Resolution 3960, a resolution amending City of Mequon financial policies to include Policy Statement 15 regarding vehicle leasing. This was recommended earlier by the Committee of the Whole. Is there any further discussion or a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Just a point of clarification, that's with Alderman Meyer's modifications.
Correct. With the modifications discussed at Committee of the Whole, there was the reviewing quarterly.
Quarterly.
Yeah, quarterly. Was that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. That's a good point to add. Don't want to lose track of that. We have a motion and a second. We have a motion. I don't think we, okay, motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes. Resolution 3961, a resolution authorizing receipt of infrastructure improvements and an execution of a dedication agreement with the Thiensville-Mequon Youth Baseball Association for dugout improvements at Rotary and River Barn Parks. Recommendation forthcoming by Public Works.
Public Works did take this up this evening and approved it unanimously, so I recommend approval.
It's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second. I'd like to thank them for their public-private partnership. Is there any further comment, or we're ready for a vote? Alderman
Real quick
Stralchuk.
one. I've been in those dugouts with kids in the rain and the cold and everything else. Dugout improvements are greatly appreciated, so thank you for stepping up and investing in our community.
Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Finally, we have resolution.
Mayor, I'm going to recluse myself from this vote, but
Nope.
maybe done before I get out of my chair.
Before you hit the back of the room, for sure. Resolution 3962, a resolution authorizing award of a contract to design Tamerlane Drive Lift Station O capacity improvements to SEH of Sheboygan, Wisconsin, in the amount of $46,960. This was recommended earlier this evening by the Sewer Utility District Commission. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Alderman Parrish.
Aye.
Alderman Schneider.
Aye.
Alderman Stralchuk.
Aye.
Alderman Bushy.
Aye.
Alderman Hancher.
Aye.
Alderman Garrow.
Aye.
That passes. We have no specified unfinished business, which means we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. Second.
Motion and did I hear a second from the far right? Motion and a second. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.